Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art. And today is Friday, December 1st, heading into the new year pretty soon. Christmas is now just a couple of weeks away, no pressure. And this week, as always, we'll take a look back at last week's auction results on eBay and take a look at a few things that are closing over the coming weekend and next week. The new newsletter will, of course, go up today, as it always does. And we're also going to take a look here on the Dealers and Auctioneers page. Next week, we'll do a quick video on the auction results from Christie's in Hong Kong. As you recall, they had 8 catalogs, actually 9. There was a single lot catalog of a Gouache painting that brought 200,000 Hong Kong, which is about roughly $24, $25 million. Pretty good result. But we'll take a look at this catalog also. If you remember, we did a bid on the Imperial Qing Monochrome collection, the J.M. Hu collection. There's some wonderful examples in there. And then important Chinese works of art, which had a couple of blockbusters. There was a couple of pieces in there that went into the 20, 30 million Hong Kong range. We'll talk about those. And that'll be coming up probably the middle of next week. We'll do it as soon as we can. We got some other things to get out of the way around here as well. So busy week coming up. And let's move along. This was a thing that was put up by Loft Seeker last week, and it did pretty well. It brought $480. Rather nice turquoise ground jar with a brown dressing dragon on it, trimmed in gold, nice lid, nice base. Rather nice example. Here's the bottom of it. Very typical late 19th century foot, what you expect to see on these. And it did just fine. It brought $480, and it wasn't an overpay and it wasn't an underpay. Worth the money. Good looking pot. And then there was this big, sort of mid to late 19th century charger. This was a big plate. I'll check the size in a minute. It was like 40-something centimeters. Nice looking landscape sort of scene, a terrace scene with these sort of scholarly rocks, outcropping on the page, and this somewhat unusual royal, very vibrant royal blue background, which is framing these trees and flowers and butterflies and peacocks. Nice looking charger. And here it is. It brought $866. And how big was this? It's 47 centimeters. That's a big plate. That's a big dish. And then we'll get along into this. And we have this rather nice famille vert. It's a 19th century jar, but with precious objects and a good looking decoration and well shaped. The pot has a very nice shape to it. Here's a picture of it, of the mouth. It had a line here and a little bit of a repair around the rim. Not unusual for these, but this was a pretty jar. And despite that, it still brought $1,066. The seller was Grand Pip. He's a good dealer over in the UK. Gets things regularly, and we cover him regularly. And then moving along to this was this appears to be, by all indications, a 18th century, possibly Kangxi famille vert jar. Nice looking pot. There's with that sort of oddball, the way they did their birds, these sort of odd birds with flying sort of almost upside down, looking behind them, and you'll see that on early pieces and pieces emulating Kangxi pieces. Here's the mouth on it, good-looking 18th century rim. Didn't have the cover, unfortunately, but the pot still brought $1,063, which is a nice result for that. And that was also Grand Pip had that up. And then there was this was a really nice blue and white plaque with the lady riding the spotted deer. The only problem was, as you can see, is that the frame that it was in, that was all beautifully articulated at one point, is rather badly bashed out. But the plaque, the tile itself, was in nice shape. There's a hole showing the hole where the piece would have fit in better. But nice looking stand. Maybe the new owner can do something with it. There's the back of it. You can see the grass cloth from where it was laid down when it was formed. You can see the cloth lines. And it did pretty well. It brought $2,776. Really nice example. And I think a part of that went for the stand, too. The stand for this was excellent. And then there was this. I like these, as many of you know, I like these sort of secondary arts of China. One of them are wood carvings. And this was a nice little grouping that somebody put up. And I think the buyer got himself a heck of a buy, a steal on these. These are good looking 19th century carvings of the better quality and nice size. And the whole lot only went for $196, which is very reasonable for one of for a grouping like this. And whoever got it, good. You got a nice buy on your hands. And then there was this jar. This jar was something I was interested in. I loved this. This was a really big Kotani jar that Chamberlain Antiques, this seller named Juice 1499 had up. This was a monster of a jar. It was 26 inches tall, and it was that extremely fine variety of Kotani with just thousands and thousands and thousands of little brush strokes all through it. It was in wonderful condition. It was a great looking pot. There it is. And it did very well. It brought $3,600. Not at all unreasonable. This was a nice and very rare sort of monumental piece of porcelain, especially for Kotani. Really big. And then there was this fan, nice Chinese export fan, beautifully laid out. As sort of this, the lacquer work on it I found interesting. It was down on the base of the sticks here. You see this sort of chagrin, like sharkskin patterning in the sticks. And then they're all gilded out around here, and then very nicely threaded together. And there's some red lacquer here, and beautiful gouache painting on the paper of an outdoor scene of men in some sort of a field. Very nice quality. And on the back are women with children in buildings and so forth in the background. This was a good looking fan. And I think it went for a reasonable price, $699. Not a bad price for that. And this is the seller Mayart over in Spain. They sell a lot of fans, and that's just one of them. And this was another piece that Chamberlain Antiques had up that closed over the week. We pointed it out last week. And it did extremely well. It was at about $700 or $800, as I recall, last week when it was getting ready to go into its last weekend. And it ended up blowing through that and went for $3,300. I thought it would bring a couple of thousand, but because it had a small repair on the mouth. But it went through that. But it's a desirable form and a very desirable color. So there you go. And it was Kangxi. And Josh also had up this nice looking pair of jars, very beautiful pair of jars with this diaper pattern of red and green and blue chimeras with gilded foulines on the neck. Very attractive looking pair of jars. And they brought $3,532. Not bad. They did just fine. And he also had up this. Josh, it was interesting. He had a bunch of Tibetan silver with coral and jade inlays, this kind of thing. This was one of the more powerful looking examples. I thought it was quite attractive. Probably went on an altar or something, and it was an altar tool, and it did very well. It brought $3,716. This Tibetan silver is starting to come into its own more and more. I think you're going to see some books coming out about this kind of material, and it's going to become very, very collected because the quality of much of it is good. And Josh also had this up. This was a really nice 18th century or earlier slab construction, large wine pot. It'd be just beautiful. In the West, they call these coffee pots. It was a big wine pot or oversized teapot, I guess. But beautifully done. And the lid on it is original. One thing I wanted to point out was sometimes you see Chinese pieces with the lids, especially early examples where the lids don't always match up with the body perfectly. And the reason is they often made the lids in a different place, and they glazed them with what they had there, and then they brought over, like in the Ming Dynasty, they would make a bunch of jars, and they'd bring over a bunch of lids and then sort of all fit them to the different jars as best they could. They didn't do them all in the same place. But this was a nice pot, and brought $2,370. And there was also this, there was 3 or 4 of these that Josh had, of these really nice Chinese export, late 18th, early 19th century gouache paintings, occupational paintings. And these have come way down in price compared to 10 or 15 years ago. Paintings like these used to sell for anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 pretty regularly. And today they've come way down, $400, $405, and he had several others that did about the same. They've sort of gone out of fashion for some reason. I don't know why. And then the seller had these up. This was a really nice dragon panel with the gilt thread stripe elm at the bottom, the base, and these blue waves crashing up through with 5-clawed dragons. This was a nice textile, and I think it went pretty reasonably. I think this was a very good buy. It was a lovely example, late 19th century. And it went for $1,246 for a big panel. I don't think that's at all unreasonable. I think that was a good purchase. And then there was Scrap Dixon over in France had up a couple of these bamboo-handled fans with silk painted landscape scenes, and on the back extensive strips of calligraphy. And this did pretty well. It brought $1,212, and it had a tear in it too. It had a little damage to it, but these are quite desirable. And this was sort of a mystery to me. The seller had it up as lacquer. It didn't look like lacquer to me. It looked like Yixing. I may be crazy, but that's what it sure looks like to me. It's like a Yixing pot with calligraphy on it. I think the seller was just mistaken. Anyway, this was a nice Yixing pot with lots of calligraphy, lots of decorations, citron fingers carved into it. And it did pretty well, $751. But he had it listed as Japanese lacquered bowl. Clearly not. It's Chinese, and I think it's probably Yixing. So whoever got it, I think, got a particularly good buy. I think this pot was, if it had been described right, probably would have brought 3 times that amount. C'est la vie. All right, and then on to this. This was that nice Ming pear-shaped vase we posted here last week. Nice looking little pot with these tubular what they call them, arrow vase type handles on the sides, and these archaic mask decoration and so forth. And this went very reasonably, to $427. I think that was a great buy for someone. If you like early bronzes, this was a really nice purchase. And then this is, let me see, this is the one that Chinese, Chinese Treasures and More had up. This was that another one of these Kangxi vases with later silver mounts in Europe. Nice looking pot. Here's the bottom of it with the artisanal leaf. Very typical, nice white Kangxi foot, and good decoration all the way around. Had a little tiny break right there, a little nick in the foot. And it went for a perfectly reasonable price, $505. That was a nice buy. I have no problem with that for that price, even with a little nick out of the foot. So these seem to be turning up more and more, especially from sellers over in the Netherlands, where this fellow is. And then there was this armorial plate, late 18th century armorial, very elaborately done with an oversized crest in the middle. Usually these crests are a third this size. This took up the whole interior with 2 flags. Could have been for a marriage, but very nicely done. And King of Prussia painted arms, and went for $441. But nice looking plate, and I think that was a relative bargain. Might have been the porcelain quality wasn't quite that as good as you might think, or as good as you might want. If you look carefully here, you'll see that there's a lot of air bubbles popping in the glaze here, and that detracts from the value for the people that are really into that stuff. And then there was this Famille Rose cup and saucer. This is a nice one, with various immortals and figures in the round in both the saucer and the cup. And it did pretty well. It still about $508. And these later 19th century cups and saucers are becoming more and more popular, as well as vases. They just seem to be going up in value. And then there's this pair of 18th century sort of mantle or garniture vases. They're missing their lids, but with the typical maiden on the landscape terrace scene, and nice looking sort of lappet bottoms, and this cracked ice pattern in between the various areas. Nice looking pair. Here's a picture of the bottom. That's what you want to see. Early 18th century. And these did well. They brought $1,001. Miguel Larry had them. He's got a number of things that were quite good last week. He's got some things up this week we're going to talk about also. And then there was this Ming plate that went up. Ming plates seem to be getting really reasonable. Either that or there's an awful lot of them coming onto the market. I don't know why, but the prices of these seem to be pulling back a little. They're not in high demand by buyers in China. They're more of a Western consumption thing, so that may have something to do with it. But this was a nice Wanli plate, and it didn't make its reserve at $155. So people are starting to protect these. So you want to see if this might not pop up again with a lower reserve next time. And coming up over this weekend is this rather nice late Ming, early Shunzi jar. Nice big jar. Good looking pot. As I recall, it's around 12 inches tall. Here's the bottom of it. Looks fine. Decoration is good. There's a couple of minor chips to the aubergine glaze on the fish here, but that's fairly typical. That aubergine glaze is rather brittle. It gets knocked off pretty easily. It's at $1,461. I suspect it'll go a good bit more before it's over, but it's a nice example, rather unusual. And these are up right now. These just went up. Art Fan Auction put these up. These are the late Ming blue and white jars. But nice looking, and it's a pair, which is rather unusual for these. They could also be early Qing, judging by the fact that they're pair, but also the decoration. But late Ming, early Qing jars, good looking, and they're at very reasonable, $41 right now. They will be in the newsletter this weekend. And Qing period is back with some pretty nice things this week again, and including this good-looking Kangxi jar with maidens on it, little tea jar, and it's up to $432. It does have a reserve on it, but his reserves tend to be very reasonable, so don't worry about that. And this was up. This is listed, by the way. I like this. I happen to have one of these in my own house. It's actually Japanese, as many of you know right away by that pattern. But the seller has it up as Chinese for some reason. But we're going to have it in the newsletter. But bear in mind when you look at it, it's not. I'll make a note. This is not a Chinese jar. It's a Japanese jar, a Rita made in the 18th century, and it's a good-looking one. So that's something to look over at. And our friend William Godrevy over in the UK has a few more things up this week, and he had this. It's a pair, a pretty nice-looking pair of cloisonne with dragons. They're 19th century, but good quality, and they seem to be rather heavily made. But 19th century pair of jars. Here are the bottoms. There they are. They look fine, and they close on Sunday. And then last was this is another piece that Qing period has up. I thought this was really nice looking. 18th century bowl, probably Yongshen period, but beautiful decoration. It's done like those. The decoration is very similar to some of those Ming bowls you see that in this pattern that bring so much money. But at any rate, it's a good-looking piece, and he's got other things. Okay, so that's it for the week, and we'll take like I said, next week we'll do a video on the Christie sales. We'll put up some of the highlights from here. There's some really wonderful things, and we'll try to touch also on the Bonham sale, which had funny results. They had some things that did unbelievably well, and other things they couldn't get off the ground, including, sadly, a couple of the major pieces, which I was surprised at, but that's the world we live in today. All right, have a great weekend, everyone, and if you're out there shopping around, be careful, and give us a thumbs up on here. It helps us with YouTube if you give us a thumbs up. It boosts our ratings. And if you haven't signed up, please do subscribe to us here on YouTube and subscribe to us over on Bidamount.com. All right, have a great weekend, and talk to you all next time. Thank you very much.